Okay. Hi, everyone, online and physical. Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity to the organizers. This is my first chapter of my PhD thesis, actually. I'm still working on it, so it's a work in progress. And I will be talking about critical infrastructures and their impact on regional economic resilience today. How should I move the slides? Should I change this? This is one. Okay. Okay. Let's try again. Yeah, perfect. Sorry. Okay, so as we know, regions today are increasingly interconnected through flows of mobility, trade, energy, and also information. And these flows are made possible by the critical infrastructures, or they are constrained by the insufficiency of these infrastructures. When these infrastructures fail, these disruptions do not remain local, but they cascade usually, and their impacts propagate across regions. And while we talk about critical infrastructures a lot, especially in security or sectoral dimensions, we still know less about how these infrastructures are spatially distributed. Are there some concentrations, or are there some shortfalls? We are not sure because there is no one comprehensive study showing these distributions. So I took a step back just to see how does critical infrastructure stock vary across regions. I'm focusing on European Union regions. Are there some regional concentrations, and to what extent is this infrastructural sufficiency, let's say, associated with regional economic resilience? Sorry. Yeah, before moving to the empirical analysis, I would like to clarify what I mean by critical infrastructures. So usually there is no one agreed fixed definition of critical infrastructure, but it's understood as the systems that enable the delivery of essential services, which support our daily lives and social and economic functionings of the regions or places. But what differs them from everyday life infrastructures, let's say, is their potential to transform a shock or disruptive event into a disaster because of their rather insufficiency or their interconnected nature. So this is what makes them critical. However, the term critical depends mostly on who defines it, at what condition and what scale. So looking at the country's perceptions or definitions of critical infrastructures, we see there are some most commonly mentioned sectors that are energy, transport, and information communication technologies. However, these infrastructures are mostly owned or operated by private sectors. So the prioritizations, definitions, or the scope, they all depend on, of course, the political choices and market interests mostly. But we want to highlight that in this study, these critical infrastructures must be reframed as public, regional, and a societal concern. And when I talk about regional resilience, what I mean, this is actually a term that is emerged in engineering field, which was once meant to a return to equilibrium, the good state. Then with the most of the studies that are trying to extend the definition and change it, now it's still a fuzzy concept, but many of the scholars, they adapt the evolutionary perspective of resilience term, which highlights the adaptive and transformative capacity, not just to bounce back to the normal or equilibrium, but maybe a better state. And it also includes terms such as redundancy, and robustness, vulnerability, and recovery. So when we talk about critical infrastructures, where do they lie in this concept? We consider that accessibility to essential services and economic continuity, social cohesion, these all fuel the adaptive capacity of the regions, especially after or during shocks. And looking at the literature, there are many studies focusing on either single infrastructural components resilience or examining the relationship between regional resilience during shocks and some infrastructural networks. And we see there's a focus on one infrastructure component or sector, let's say. And looking at them one by one, transport infrastructure is highly focused on because it's proven that of course it provides accessibility, and therefore during the disruptions or after the disruptions, it's very important for the recovery speed. If the transport infrastructure is disrupted, this means that in immediate aftermath of the shock, you cannot just access the goods and services, and it's really cascading all the impacts and worsening the situation. So also it, without thinking about the disruptions or one specific shock, we see the transport infrastructure is something that fuels the territorial cohesion, linking different regions and places, especially for rural and lagging behind areas. It's very important for them to have the transport infrastructure as a start, at least. And energy is important because it's providing all the continuity. It's important for the functionings of these other infrastructural elements, and it also provides geopolitical stability. However, its decentralization is also important when we think of the cascading disasters. And ICT is important for economic productivity, thinking about disruptions again, disasters. During disasters, it provides the coordination and information flows, which is really important. Again, thinking about the economic field, we see it boosts innovation, social inclusion, and adaptive capacity of the regions. And public services, we highlighted health and education facilities under this category because it's important for human capital and especially to keep the population, the demography within the region. If a disruption happens, is really important to prevent long-term migrations, and it's important for the demographic stability in this sense. And here I added a picture that I took in L'Aquila. This is a university building, and after like 15 years of the earthquake, it's still under reconstruction. I'm not sure if it's getting some restoration efforts or not. It's just as it is for the 2 years that I'm in L'Aquila. And this is the situation, and it's really important, especially for the population. So resilience is not only a system performance, but it's also equitable access to essential services, and infrastructures, critical infrastructures are the providing elements. And spatial disparities can transform shocks into long-term crisis. As I said, in the literature, I want to highlight some gaps. There are overemphasis on single sector analysis. There is this high focus on system functionality rather than territorial distribution, the spatial patterns. And there is this limited attention to accessibility dimension. And there are not many harmonized, comparable cross-regional data sets that we can do some comparative analysis to provide a basement for policy implication. So we want to shift the focus from protection of these infrastructure to sufficiency, and from their performance to accessibility, from national security concerns to regional capacity concerns, and from sectoral analysis to a more integrated stock measurement. And how we do that? So we first collected some data from open sources for the 4 dimensions that we thought are the most often highlighted in the literature, in the policy documents, which are transport, energy, ICT, and public services. They all include different elements. And of course, we are a bit limited by the data availability here. We used like Euro Global Map, Global Energy Monitor, and OpenStreetMap for the georeferenced data. However, for ICT, it's really difficult to find an open data, georeferenced data, which are mostly private. So we had to rely on Eurostat data on the household access to internet, but it's not georeferenced. So we aggregated this under regional level, NUTS2 level regions. And this is how we built our stock. And for additional data, we relied on Eurostat and Regional Competitiveness Index data. So how we aggregated this to build a composite indicator of critical infrastructure stock? We first standardized all the variables. For instance, let's say roads, per capita within that region, per land, and per 1 kilometer grids per population within 1 kilometer grids. And we aggregated these within NUTS2 level regions, and then standardized again. Then we received, for instance, a transport score, taking the mean, and then we normalized these. And we did the same procedure for energy, ICT, public services, and then we aggregated them with equal weights, then with PCA, then with entropy weighting. And then we compared the rankings of the regions between different kind of weighting methods, and they are highly correlated. So our composite indicator is robust to choice of weighting methods, more or less. And we normalize these again between 0 and 1. And for regional resilience index, we relied on a study in which they find 5 thematic dimensions reflect the resilience drivers. These include community links, including like governance, quality, accountability, these kind of measurements, and human capital, labor market, economic performance, and innovation and research variables. And this is again a composite index of regional resilience. This is collected from different times. It's not a panel data, but it's like average of like at least 10 years of these data. So this is the first result, which shows the composite indicator scores of European Union regions. Here we can see the darker ones are the higher scored ones. And you can see to the north of Scandinavian countries, it's the critical infrastructure is accumulated, concentrated. And looking at the Western European regions, we see there is not many concentration for the capital regions, such as, for instance, Madrid is not doing better than its environment, or Paris, but they're not so bad. Looking at the Eastern and Southern European regions, we see they're not performing so well. However, their capitals are performing better than the near vicinity of these capital regions, which is interesting. And moving forward, we see different, I don't know if it's visible. The first one is transport, energy, ICT, and public service scores. So we can discuss a lot about this because how reliable OpenStreetMap data is a bit suspicious, but still we have to rely on that for at least public services. And in public services, we see some accumulations in French regions, and especially Southern Europe is doing well. And Germany is not performing so well, which is surprising for us. But then we searched further, and it seems that they're complaining about these in their research articles as well. So this is something that we can further focus on. And looking at ICT, again, some German regions are not doing well. This is also a discussion that I'm familiar with. They're not doing so good in digital infrastructure. Looking at the Netherlands, for instance, they're one of the best. And for transport, we see again a similar kind of concentration. Sorry, I'm not going by, like, I'm going towards the clockwise. And energy, again, energy and transport seem more or less parallel to each other. So we can say maybe regions that invest more on transport also invest on energy, which are like parallel kind of infrastructures. They are like traditional infrastructures, right? They're not like digital infrastructures or public services. So it shows some parallelity. But again, we wanted to look for like if there are some patterns, if there are some regional typologies. And we did k-means clustering, and we found, like, we based our clusters on 6 dimensions, 6 clusters. And there are different kind of typologies, as we can see. Some regions are lagging, which means their means are lower than the base mean in all dimensions: transport, energy, public services, ICT. And we see these are like southern Italian regions, Greece, more or less concentrated in the east and south. And there is this second cluster, social and digital infrastructure leaders. They are better in social digital infrastructures compared to their transport and energy. And these are the light blue ones, as you can see here. And cluster 3, high capacity leaders, because they're good on each of them in a more balanced way. And these are the green ones. Like, interestingly, central Spain and northern regions are doing well. And cluster 4 shows ICT-centric regions that are dark blue ones. And we can see these are like the Dutch regions mostly. And digitally compensating ones, they're very good in ICT, but they're not good in the other ones. Their means are very below the average. And these are most of the regions. Basically, they're trying to digitally compensate these days, probably. And the energy-driven ones they're good in energy. Also in transport, they're good, like in traditional infrastructures, but they're not doing well in public service and ICT. And this is like mostly the German regions and some Spanish regions here. And this is the regional resilience course that we built the index for. And we did a very basic OLS regression analysis without any controls first to see if there is a positive association with the critical infrastructure stock. And there is good news. Across different weighting methods, we see positive and significant correlation between them. And adding some different controls, including the geographical dimensions, whether the region is mountainous or if it has a coastal region, and if it experienced disasters, like serious disasters in the past 15 years. So we controlled, and again, we have significantly positive correlation in each weighting method. Yeah, of course.
Explain again what is the index that's
This one you see is region's performance on like, so maybe I can show again this slide. Sorry. Yeah, this one. So these are the different variables, including, we group them under different themes, like community links, like it shows governance quality, accountability, corruption, and healthy life expectancy, some health variables, and education levels, employment levels, and these are regional level, aggregated within the regions, and also labor productivity, like disposable income of people, and GDP, GVA. And like for research innovation, it includes like total patent applications, research expenditures, and human resources, etc. These kind of variables. So it's an average of these, and we built this index with entropy weighting. So this shows that. But it's a bit, yeah, this is like 10 years, but it's not a panel data. I mean, it reflects the average of 10 years. So it's not a dynamic regional resilience. We don't measure for the adaptive capacity here, but it's based on the literature, because it wasn't the main focus of our research. We accepted that if the regions have these drivers, like capacity drivers, it should be adaptive, like high capacity. Yeah.
So just do 10 years for all the regions.
It should be, yeah, more or less, because they're mostly from Eurostat data, and it covers for each region for the same period of time. Yeah. But for each variable, I cannot say the same. For each region, yeah, but for each variable, it can change. So, yeah.
The regions you're mentioning are also the marketing plots, like the data are coming from the region.
Yes, exactly. It's not stool level. Yeah. It's like, a bit larger than the province level, basically, statistical units. And yeah, again, we saw the positive and significant relationship. However, there's this problem that the more resilient regions, or let's say more high capacity regions, can also attract more infrastructure investments. So we cannot really define the direction of the causality. This is a problem. And the main problem is we cannot find lagged data for infrastructures this comprehensive. I mean, we cannot find historical data of these, because, I mean, there is this OpenStreetMap data that we can use, but it's not complete for, if we go back like to 5 years before today, it's still not very consistent, sadly. And 5 years doesn't really reflect something in infrastructure, because, yeah, because okay. Yeah, because the infrastructures, they are not built like in short-term periods of time. It takes so much time to build a road, like large amounts of infrastructures, I mean. So we needed at least 10-year gap, and it's really difficult to find consistent, comprehensive data for that. So what we did instead, we went way back to Roman road infrastructure, and we thought, so these infrastructures shape the density of these infrastructures. We didn't think that. It's proven in the literature. We see they shape today's infrastructures in Europe, where there is this high density of Roman roads. Today as well, there is the high concentration of infrastructures. And we decided to use it as an instrument, because it's not impacted by today's economic variables, indicators. And also it cannot affect, in any case, it cannot get impacted, and it cannot impact today's economic variables, because they were mostly built for military and administrative purposes, regardless of the region's how can I say, economic activities. So therefore, they are largely independent of the economic outcomes in any time of the history. And there is the strong long-run spatial persistency. So we thought it can capture a historically determined infrastructural endowment. So first, we exploit the relationship between Roman road density within this not too leveled regions in Europe, and try to see how is the strength between the relationship between Roman road and today's infrastructure. We see it's not a good instrument because the F statistics, it should be higher than 10. It's moderate at the moment with 8. I mean, it's still, they're still significantly correlated positively, but it should be higher than 10. So yeah, just keep that in mind. It's not a strong instrument, and it's really difficult to find a strong instrument in the cases. So, but it's, yeah, significant and positive. And then we use the variation, we predict the variation of critical infrastructure stock based on the Roman road density. Then we take that variation and apply it to the second step to measure the relationship between regional resilience again. And then we see again a significant positive relationship. So yeah, this is just a robustness check. This proves that there is a significant and positive relationship between regional infrastructural endowments and regional resilience drivers. However, still our instrument is not very strong, so we're thinking of alternative ways to find, basically. So to conclude my slides, we saw there are different patterns of critical infrastructure stock across European regions. There are some concentrated high-capacity hubs, such as Berlin, Prague, Vienna, especially in Eastern European capitals. And Nordic countries, they perform very well across different kinds of critical infrastructure sectors. And there are some structurally lagging regions in Southern and Eastern Europe. And our 6-cluster typology clarified that critical infrastructure sufficiency is territorially uneven, and it's very different between dimensions. And there is a positive association between critical infrastructure stock and regional resilience, which indicates that infrastructure sufficiency contributes to adaptive capacity. And there are some policy implications, of course, based on these. Lagging regions, they should focus on more foundational, traditional, and broad-based upgrades. Digitally compensating regions, they should strengthen their physical services because you cannot just compensate just focusing on one, just investing on one type of infrastructure. Otherwise, the cascading impacts will be finding you. And energy-driven regions, they should diversify into different kind of infrastructures, especially social infrastructures. And ICT-centric regions, they should reinforce their public service backbone because they were lagging behind in this especially. Of course, this study is not without its limitations. The most critical one is, I mentioned before, data availability. We relied mostly on the public open data, and these are not so consistent across everywhere because it's based on people reporting them. And stock doesn't really mean performance, so we didn't really assess the accessibility dimension. We just looked for sufficiency per demography and per space. So these will be the further steps of this PhD research. And there can be also some cross-border impacts, spillovers. Your neighbor region can be performing so well, that's why you can, maybe even if you don't have that infrastructure, you can be benefiting from that region. These also can be assessed with some special econometrics methods. So these will be our next steps. refining the instrument and looking for special spillovers, maybe refining our data. And yeah, this is all. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm looking forward to your comments.
Hey, thanks for Aydan's very detailed research about the Europe. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you put a drama prose. So can you go back to the slide of the clusters?
Yeah.
Sure.
This one.
So I have a couple of questions to this. The first one is just for curiosity if you try different number of clusters.
Yeah, we tried. We did elbow and silhouette analysis, actually the most like goodly differentiated ones, 2 clusters or 6 clusters. So 2 is just
What did you see?
yeah, I mean there is a differentiation of lagging and doing well, but it doesn't really give us the it's not a good base for the policy implications. Okay, these are good and bad, but like yeah, we needed more differentiation to see broader patterns. Yeah.
And the other question is, did not entirely clear to me the difference between the cluster 4 and the cluster 5.
Yeah, because they're both doing well in ICT, but ICT centric is you see the highest. The means are the highest. They are the top ones in ICT. And they're not doing so bad in transport and energy, but the cluster 1, they're not doing good in transport and energy and anything. They're just good at ICT. So probably they're just investing on ICT and they're not even the best. But yeah, the ICT one is also good in traditional infrastructure as well. I mean, not bad, but the other one is bad. So probably they're trying to compensate. They're investing only ICT. So that's just an interpretation. Yeah.
So it's stronger the ICT component is with respect to the others, or more like among the two, the cluster 4 has higher ICT and so on, so to like
Yeah.
apart from the digital compensating.
Yeah, it's performing very well on ICT. That's why, I mean, there is a huge difference. You can see ICT is 0.7. So it's like centric, but it's not trying to compensate. It's centering its investment on that, probably. But digitally compensating one is like they have limited resources probably and in monetary terms. So they're only investing on ICT because they're not doing good in any of the rest. Probably that's the interpretation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe.
Sort of following up on Leonardo's question and connecting it with what you said earlier about like benefiting from your neighbors.
Mhm.
Do you have a sense of like how much the spatial distribution of these clusters is influenced by the neighboring regions? Because like
Mhm.
all of the light blue are like clustered in France, like is there some kind of like gradient or
Yeah.
or something like that you can speak of that's
Possible because as you say, they're concentrated mostly like near each other. They're like near each other. But I mean, yeah, we didn't look further, but we can definitely look like what makes them stay close. That's a good thing to search. Yeah, thank you.
So I wanted to thank you for the talk. It was very nice. I want to try to understand a bit more because I'm not used with the field, so I want to.
Mhm.
So in the previous, like when you're just showing these ones, for example. So when you are, or the previous even, which is the cumulative of the 4, right?
Yeah.
It's this one. So for example, when they are closer to 1,
Mhm.
that means that the critical infrastructures are sufficient for the population. That's good.
Yeah, like compared to other regions, of course.
Compared to other regions.
Yeah,
And which
it's a relative.
is a relative to like other regions, like relative to which region? Like
Yeah, like these are normalized values of the regions, but yeah, the variables are measuring the density in terms of space, also in terms of the demography, like population, and per grid. Yeah, this is the density. Let's say, I mean, it's more correct to say the density for population and for the space. So this is the relative measurement, because I mean, we aggregate all these variables within regional level, then we normalize between the regions that we have, all the regions we have. So like one should be the best among these regions. It doesn't mean it's performing the best in the world, or like there is no one like standardized measurement, but yeah, these are the best to worst.
Okay.
Maybe it's not the best.
No, because no, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
And for example, like the Spanish case is like it's interesting, because then the central region is not, you said it's not performing well, but then the kind of like outside, like in the kind of like donut around like Madrid, is performing very, very well.
Yeah.
And so
weird.
does that mean that in those regions, like these critical infrastructures are sufficient for the population?
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, it's we can say maybe in Madrid it's a very concentrated region in terms of population. So the infrastructure maybe not more per people, because we weight more the people, considering we take the gridded population and land. So the population part is highly weighted here.
Okay.
So yeah, according to the population, it's not better than the surroundings, but I mean, it doesn't mean the performance, as I said. It's just the stock. It's just numbers and density. So yeah, this is just the first look on the distribution of the infrastructures. So maybe in terms of performance, it can be more accessible. It can be better, because these regions are mostly rural, right? I mean, it's also their land areas are so huge. Also, this is the case, or that's why we wanted to weight more the population dimension. Because if no one is living there, then it doesn't mean, I mean, it's not important. I mean, it's important if you connect this village to this village, even if there are like 2 people living there, it's very important for them. So it's really a subjective matter, I would say.
And for example, in the eastern case of the capitals in the east, which they usually are like more performing better compared to kind of, for example, Spain.
Yeah, you can say that.
So do you how do I ask this? So do you think, so these cities are also like very densely, but why do you think they have like this different? Do you think they have an idea of, like, for example, why Madrid would perform this way?
Yeah, these can be related to maybe their historical trajectories, and imagine that, for instance, Budapest was like under like socialist Soviet government, or maybe they prioritized infrastructural investments more. That's not maybe that is the case, but that's also another research question to look for. Yeah, it's interesting though. Yeah.
And then one last question, sorry, just it's a basic question, but I'm just trying to. So this is the critical infrastructure, like thermal distribution. Then the resilience is the second map that you show, which is the orange one. So what's the relationship to these two things? Because you took them from different places, not like it's different like sources of data. And they mean different things.
Yes.
But is there like kind of like that you want to kind of like argue something like in relation to one another?
Yeah, I mean, as it was already discussed in the literature. So if you have more digital infrastructure, ICT infrastructure, that boosts your innovation, your technological industry, and so on. So we're actually measuring these indicators with the Regional Resilience Index, like innovation, labor productivity, like health outcomes, how are people's health expectancy, if they have more hospitals. But again, it doesn't mean that hospitals are performing better, or if they have the enough amount of beds, for instance, or doctors. But still, it's a first look, very broad, in a very broad sense. And we say there is this relationship with like physical infrastructure and like health outcomes, or like innovation outcomes. these are positively related. So you should invest more on these infrastructures, regardless of market interest or anything, just for the people. But yeah, accessibility and performance should follow this for sure. This is just to discuss.
Raj, maybe Raj first.
No, it's just a quick one, and I don't know quick one. Was there a national level aggregate of this like over time to see like how these measures have changed over time for the country as a national level?
No, these were at regional.
But I mean,
level.
you aggregate.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
No, I didn't control for the national.
And
But we can.
was there in over time like a temporal aspect of this, like seeing how these clusters have changed over? No.
No, sadly no. But it's an important thing that we should do. Yeah.
Because then
Very
maybe that
important.
would explain what Andres was talking about, like seeing like
The change. Yeah. That's the problem is with infrastructure is really difficult to find. That's what I meant. But again, I mean, we can look for the regional resilience indicators. How do they change? But yeah. Thank you.
Maybe please.
So I'm looking at like the color bar that you have here for this composite
Yeah.
indicator. So you like, I'm curious, since you've discretized this like continuous measure, what the distribution looks like, because half of the values are in this like category.
It's very
like
skewed.
a really skewed
Yeah.
distribution.
It's very skewed. Yeah. Yeah. It can be because of inconsistencies of the data or like, yeah, it's a challenging thing to ask. But you're right, it's very skewed. Yeah.
I have another question sort
Yeah.
of related. So you talked about the challenges of aggregating data across different sources and trying to sort of make sense of how to connect these different data sources.
Mhm.
What would your ideal data set look like to address this kind of research question?
Yeah. It would it should include the change, I think, like the historic patterns. It should be dynamic, like panel data. And again, like these infrastructures that we retrieve from OpenStreetMap, they are based on people reporting them. So if there were a better data set, if you know, please, it would be good to have a very reliable, like georeferenced data and historic data, historic patterns. For regional resilience indicators, we can do that. But if we cannot track the change in infrastructure, then just by itself, we won't be saying something again, like very meaningful maybe. But yeah. Yeah.
First of all, I'll make them talk.
Thank you.
Did you think about using, or is it possible or doable using other definitions of a region? Especially because there is a certain imbalance when it comes, for example, to Estonia, Lithuanian, Cyprus. There is basically the country level, but if you look to Germany, it's very, very detailed.
Yeah, this is because of these are predetermined statistical regions. So yeah, you're right. It's very, it's not, it shouldn't be very comparable. So maybe we can try like grid-based. Yeah, we can try different kind of determinations. Yeah, but but we already calculated the like gridded level density of the infrastructures. The problem would be related to the economic indicators because they do not provide anything on that level, so it's all like political statistical units. That's why we have to rely on that. But there can be, I mean, we can try to find other things or like try to aggregate in regions again. But for a study this comprehensive in terms of the geography, I mean, it's a bit challenging, but yeah, it should be done. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? No questions. Okay. Thank you. And I also have a question.
Yes.
I'm really interested in the Roman roads instrument methods. Okay. Do you think at what extent those ancient Roman roads have the influence on the modern economy of the of that region?
Yeah.
Does it exert huge influence, or it's just a coincidence that those roads just lied in some important positions? What do you think?
Yeah, it's an important question, really. We asked that too. Yeah, in the literature, we see they are correlated with the infrastructural endowments of today. They are impacting, but it's not maybe because the regions were important, but because the geography allowed them to build some kind of, for instance, roads in some places. So they're very continuous. But I mean, first, when these roads were built, they didn't pay attention to the economic activity. They mostly built them, according to the history literature, they built them to either connect like different regions that are they may not be very important in terms of economic activity, but they're important in terms of administration, because in Roman Empire it was the main reason to position the military. They first had to construct roads and to to govern the places they constructed. But then the economic activity, of course, concentrated in those regions. But the economic activity didn't come first, like before. It was the infrastructure first, then the economic activity chose its places. That's why it impacts today's maybe infrastructural endowments, but not directly today's economic indicators. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again for Aydan's amazing talk.